has been all about Corey Mack and John Force. Will their track dominance continue, or will a new face clutch the Wally at the Moto1.net Nationals? It is an absolutely magnificent day for racers and fans alike here in Richmond, Virginia. The Virginia Motorsports Park hosting the Moto1.net Nationals under 80-degree temperatures. And with $1.8 million on the line, we are set for a wonderful day of racing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to TNN Sports coverage of NHRA Winston Drag Racing. Eli Gold, along with the Chi-Town hustler, Frank Hawley. This has been a great season already. 5 races, 5 different winners in Top Fuel. And then on an individual basis, Corey McLenithan, used to being high in points, he's 7th. John Force, used to leading the funny car points, he's in 4th. And even Warren Johnson, he's already 133 points down in pro stock. And this is not an easy racetrack on which to make up some ground, is it?
No, it's not, Eli. Now, the track's very fast, and that's because they added 300 feet to the concrete starting line, which, of course, gives the cars excellent traction and produces those record performances. But when they did that, they've got a couple bumps, especially on the left side of the racetrack, and that's causing some of the drivers problems.
Now taking a look at the point standings, and remember this year, that's how the Top Fuel points look. Remember this year, Frank, if you oil down the track and they have to roll the safety safari, there are 10-point penalties, and watch how some of those positions would swap around right there. You see where 7th and 8th would flip around, 9th and 10th spots would flip around, so really, those points are rather valuable. We always talk about that.
Yeah, and of course, the racers don't want to oil the track, but that gives them a little extra incentive not to.
Those who qualified here this weekend, see where your favorite has come in, including Don Lampus. Joe Amato grabbed the top spot away from Kenny Bernstein late.
Yeah, 56, and it's really great to see that top half of the field all in the 460s.
And there you see Rit Pistari and Steve Smith. The first round has already been completed. Let's take you back just a bit and bring you up to speed, including the Kenny Bernstein-Rit Pistari matchup. It was a good one.
See, both of the drivers had problems right off the start. Kenny Bernstein was off and on the accelerator trying to get that car down to the finish line. And sometimes you need a little good fortune to win these events.
Kind of like Gary Scelzi against Rhonda Hartman-Smith. It was Rhonda's for the taking. Then she loses the blower belt and Scelzi recovers.
And a little lady luck was on his side because a 572 is not the kind of ET that you usually win the first round with.
So the ladders here at the Moto1.net Nationals look like this as far as Top Fuel is concerned. Amato and Herbert advancing. Dixon and Doug Coletta have moved on. The other side of the ladder sees Bernstein, Schumacher, Scelzi, and Corey McLenithan. Not really an upset on the whole lot.
No, that's a tough side of the ladder. There's going to be some great matchups, Eli.
As per usual, joining us on the telecast today, a man who is an institution around the NHRA. Steve Evans is with us as well. Steve?
Thanks, Eli, and hi, everybody. If we're going to extend the streak of different drivers having won in Top Fuel this year from 5 to 6, it falls on the back of 3 drivers: Joe Amato, Doug Herbert, and the man that wheels this MB&A Joe Gibbs-owned Top Fueler, Corey McLenithan. And let me tell you, this is a good horse to ride. Corey Mack has won this race the past 2 years, beat David Grubnick in the first round with a nice 468. Now, here's 2 keys maybe to winning here today. One is hang on to lane choice. The left or far lane has some bumps in the concrete pad, throws the car off balance, control problems, traction problems. The other one is keep the stupid blower belt on. Crew chiefs are overdriving these superchargers like never before to make up for the lack of nitro, and the belts are not happy. We've seen a rash of them pitched off this weekend. Eli?
You're exactly right, Steve. The more you turn that blower, I mean, after a while, there's only so much pounding it can take, and we've seen those belts go flying. As you can tell, it is a magnificent day here in Richmond, Virginia. The countryside in Dinwiddie County has never looked nicer. We're back on TNN in a moment. TNN Sports coverage of the Moto1.net Nationals from Richmond, Virginia is being brought to you by David Sunflower Seeds. Break out of your shell. By Fran, who asks, when was the last time you changed your air filter? And by New Finish, the once-a-year car polish rated #1 by Consumer Magazine's New Finish. Welcome back, everybody, as we are with you in Richmond, Virginia, the Moto1.net Nationals. Glad you're able to tune in. And don't forget, we've got more NHRA Winston drag racing coming up next weekend right here on TNN. The world's fastest drag racers do battle in Atlanta. Don't miss it. The Advance Auto Parts Nationals next Sunday, 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, right here on TNN. Hope you can join Frank, Steve, and myself and the whole crew in Atlanta. Beautiful day. A record crowd is on hand. Funny car point standings. That's how they look right now, and some interesting numbers there.
Well, John Force, 4th in the points. Here's a guy that for the last decade is used to be a #1, not Jerry Tolliver.
Now, as was the case with the Top Fuel, look how things would have changed around when you take away the penalties that have been assessed because of the oil downs. That is a major storyline this year.
It's going to be quite interesting at the end of the season if somebody wins the Winston Championship because of an oil down.
The points really more of a story than the dollars, actually. Here's how the qualifying went, and John Force back at the top of the heat. Todd Payton's continuing to show well, isn't he?
He's doing excellent, and it's further an example of an alcohol driver stepping into the nitro category and proving himself.
And can Bob Gilbertson do it again from the 16th spot like he did in Houston?
It's going to be awful tough because this is a very fast racetrack, and I don't think many of these top cars are going to be making problems.
Now let's show you what's already transpired here this weekend in first round eliminations. It opened up with Tolliver and Worsham. The Black Machine Tolliver. He's just too strong.
Yeah, the car's doing a great job. Now, Worsham had some problems and got off and on the throttle and actually did a pretty good job and almost chased him down.
Now, Gilbertson beat Force in Houston. It won't happen here today.
No, but Force had some problems and had to get off the throttle. The car dropped a cylinder, lost some downforce, and pushed him over to the center of the track. He was lucky he didn't touch the center line because that would have cost him the round.
Watch the red car, Jim Epler against Dean Scusa. 489, 310 miles an hour.
That's what the driver wants to see, is no car in the other lane when you cross the finish line.
So the ladders for Funny Car to this point with the first round now already complete stacks up like this. Force and Hoffman. Bruce Sarver knocked out Whit Bazemore here in round #1, and Scotty Cannon advances as well.
We've got some good matchups on the other side, and Ron Capps looks particularly strong today. The car's doing very, very well.
That WWF bunch, though, they're awfully tough, both Tolliver and Epler. Let's go back down to the pits. Steve Evans.
Hey, Ron Capps fans, I've got good news. Ron wheeled the Snakes Camaro into round #2 with a solid 499 over Gary Densham in round 1. Ron Capps fans, I've got bad news. In the second stanza, he faces off with Jim Epler, the WWF car, who had low elapsed time at the first round at 489. That gives him lane choice, and we talked before how important that can be. Now, Jerry Tolliver, that owns Epler's car, may secretly be hoping that Ron wins, because if Epler wins, Tolliver has to race him in the semis if he gets through round 2, and there are no team rules. Unlike the WWF, no predetermined winner there. Epler could take the man out.
You mean the WWF, they know who's going to win before it starts?
Oh, I can't imagine, Eli.
I don't know. Have to talk to Steve about that. Great crowd on hand down on the pits. We're back. Second round action next.
Kenny Bernstein's Budweiser King Top Fuel Dragster. Who says you need wings to fly?
Stand by for launch. 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
NHRA Winston Drag Racing. Nitro Rocket Bad Boys launching at speeds of 330 miles per hour. Experience the fastest, most powerful, most intense motorsport on the planet. NHRA Winston Drag Racing.
We have ignition.
A great look from the Bud 1 airship at the Virginia Motorsports Park as we welcome you back to TNN's coverage of the Moto1.net NHRA Nationals. There is Corey McLenithan. Only Mike Neff, a holdover from last year's team. Everybody is brand new, or they've come over from the funny car team, but Corey told us earlier in the week things still aren't going as best he'd like.
I think we're in a transition period with all the guys coming over from the funny car from last year, the Interstate Batteries funny car rather, and also with Wes Cerny being my crew chief. I've been looking forward to working with Wes for a while now, actually, and I think it's one of those deals where we've put up some good numbers, we lack a little consistency, and we're trying to find that right now, and it's been harder to find. The new rule change definitely, threw us a curveball at the beginning of the season also. So, but, I'm pretty happy. Things have definitely turned around the last few races. It's getting better.
He can be a tough guy to deal with, Corey Mack. Not a good loser, nor would you expect him to be. Frank, how difficult for a Wes Cerny, the crew chief there, to make that transition from funny car to Top Fuel?
Well, there's a lot of things that are the same, but of course the balance in the car is different. You run the clutch different. The fuel systems are a little bit different, and it's going to take them a little while to catch on to that Top Fuel car and get it running as good as the funny car was.
And Gary Scelzi in the other lane, Big Red. A good drag race, and Gary Scelzi gets the win at 466. 305 miles an hour. So Corey Mack is going home. Somewhat of a surprise, as good as Scelzi is. Look how well Corey has run here over the years.
Well, yeah, this racetrack has been very, very good to these guys, and I think that Wes Cerny's starting to figure some things out. It was a good race in the middle of the course, but you can see what happened as they got to the finish line.
So Gary Scelzi, who is second in points coming in, 66 points down, finds himself advancing now on to the semifinals here at the Virginia Motorsports Park. And there's Big Red. Steve, it's a nice win, a big win for Gary Scelzi.
Johnson is going to love the look of this motor. It is clean, it is dry, no oil anywhere, and most importantly, the blower belt is still on the car, which it was at round one. That was a nice win, 466.
Well, I'll tell you what. Congratulations, Corey. We had to have a lucky one first round. We got by that one, and thank God. When you race a guy like Corey, you know what you're up against, and I'll tell you what, Team Winston knew what they were up against, and that was a good one. It's dry, and we're going to the semis. It's a good thing.
And he hopes he keeps lane choice.
I don't know what you went, Corey. You went 66.
So Gary Scelzi advances as we are now set for our next pair in Top Fuel. That is Joe Amato. And he is going up against Doug Herbert. If you were with us last week, or on our last show, more appropriately put, in Houston, Doug Herbert had his best outing of the season, advancing to the semifinals before losing to the eventual race winner, Larry Dixon. Doug was telling me he was having main bearing problems in Houston as the weekend progressed. He said the engine tune-up, I guess, what, Frank, tweaking it so much more now because of the new nitro rules. He said it's just putting so much strain on those front cylinders, is the way he explained it to me.
Well, there's a lot of things that can cause some problems. Of course, you can have problems when you aren't even running fast, and the engine's just not running smoothly, and it can cause some problems. But you really need to fix those bearing problems, because they're the things that can burn up and cause connecting rod failures and, of course, oil downs.
And, Steve, as you said earlier, with lane choice, that right lane is the favored one so far today.
It sure is. And by the way, Joe Amato is driving a Brad Hadman car, as is Kenny Bernstein and Gary Scelzi, but having top-end handling problems. Let's see if it happens again.
Problems for Joe Amato, and Herbert, who at deep stage takes it to the house with a 475 at 293 miles an hour. Big-time run for Doug Herbert.
Yeah, now Doug pulled in. I'm not sure if he, what you're talking about, deep staged. He pulled a little farther into his staging beams than he should have. The pre-stage light went out. That, of course, is going to make his reaction time look better, but the ET looked worse. Now, Amato,
could have made up the ground because his car's been running fast, but some problems down in the mid-course, and then Herbert had some problems right down near the finish line.
Watch it again from high overhead in the Bud 1 airship. Herbert got away in a hurry. And there you see the flash that precedes the problems for Joe Amato. So the last couple of weeks, Steve, been pretty good for that guy.
Yeah, Doug Herbert in the, quote, bad lane, a 475 deep stage. That's okay.
That's not bad. A deep stage takes a couple hundredths off. My throttle stuck on the burnout, and a bunch of nitro went out of the tank and went in my eye, so I kind of went up there half blind, but Mato's kind of old, so maybe we was kind of equal on that one.
And he's kind of tall.
You tell him he's kind of old. We're going to come right back and continue from the Virginia Motorsports Park. The Moto1.net NHRA Nationals are on TNN Sports. Welcome back, everybody. Richmond, Virginia, a bird's eye view of NHRA Winston drag racing from the Bud 1 airship flying 1,000 feet above the Virginia Motorsports Park. And don't forget, fans, all that fresh beer tastes better when it's got the name Budweiser on it. Next weekend, more great NHRA Winston drag racing coming up. The world's fastest dragsters doing battle in Atlanta. Don't miss the Advanced Auto Parts Nationals next Sunday at 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, right here on TNN. Frank and Steve and I, the whole crew, will be on hand. Hope you can make your plans to be with us as well. Tony Schumacher and Kenny Bernstein. Schumacher's always tough. Bernstein in the last number of races in particular, either the #1 or the #2 qualifier.
Yeah, the car's been running really good. Now, he had some problems in the first round of competition, smoked the tires, but actually won that round. So his first round numbers weren't good enough to give him lane choice, and most of the drivers have been taking the right side of the racetrack. So I think that might give Schumacher a little bit of an advantage, but the Bernstein camp, they know how to run on both sides of this racetrack.
Who do you like, Steve?
Well, I like that far lane. I don't care who's in it. Kenny Bernstein won in that lane, but smoked the tires almost all the way to the finish line. Was so furious, he never got out of the car, never took his helmet off. They towed him to the pits in the car.
We had shown you his run earlier in the day as part of our highlights of round 1 coverage. Schumacher closest to you, and the Bud King, Kenny Bernstein, on the far side as you look. Reaction time to Bernstein, the win to the King of Speed at a 461, 315 miles an hour, 265, Frank, at the 1/8 of a mile. That's big time.
The cars are flying. A 461 for Bernstein and a 461 for Schumacher, but Bernstein got the jump off the starting line by about 0.03 of a second, and that was going to be the difference at the finish line. Was Kenny's reaction time on the starting line. Maybe him getting a little fired up after that first round helped him here.
Could be. From the Bud 1 airship, saw Bernstein get away with that 473 to the 51.
You can see 0.03 of a second. You actually can't even see it with the naked eye on the starting line, but you can see the difference 0.03 makes at 300 miles per hour.
And now riding with Bernstein towards the runoff area. The Bud King will slow down. Here's the view he has.
This is what it used to look like when they had front motor top fuel dragsters and you sat behind that thing.
So Kenny Bernstein will advance. He will have lane choice over Gary Scelzi in their matchup. As there you see Larry Dixon. He drives for the Snake. Don the Snake Prudhomme. And Doug Coletta, having advanced with his win over Paul Romine earlier in the day.
You know, you take somebody like Larry Dixon, who grew up around drag racing because his dad was an excellent top fuel dragster driver. But can you imagine the first job you ever get in drag racing in a top fuel car? You drive it for Don the Snake Prudhomme. Not a lot of pressure there. What do you think?
But he responded, though, as the Rookie of the Year there in 1995. So he could have knuckled under and didn't.
Well, he did a fabulous job in his first year and every year after, but I think that shows a lot of poise on his part to be able to have somebody like the Snake stand on the start line and watch him drive all the time.
There he is. Of course, the other side has Connie Coletta taking care of Doug Coletta. Connie is Doug's uncle, so Brings back a few memories of some great tussles years ago. Dixon's going on, and Doug Coletta is going home. A 4.68 for Larry Dixon at 305 miles an hour, and Coletta had problems around half track, was never a factor. So let's backtrack a bit. Kenny Bernstein's just climbing from the Bud King. Steve Evans is with him.
And that 461 in the, quote, bad lane is a big mood improvement for KB.
It sure is. I got to say hats off to Lee Beard and Green and the team, Budweiser team, for doing a great job in between rounds. We really had a struggle in the first round, and they had a lot to do to beat the guy Schumacher, believe me.
Some great driving, too, by Kenny Bernstein, on time.
And Bernstein, as we mentioned, ends up with lane choice against Gary Scelzi, while the Dixon-Herbert battle will go with Dixon having lane choice. Coming up, more from Richmond. Hey, folks, if you think things are getting rough on the track, check out TNN tonight. That's when you'll see a ton of fury unleashed, and the rider experiences the longest 8 seconds in sports. Don't miss PRCA Championship Rodeo from Laughlin, Nevada, tonight at 9 Eastern and Pacific. It's right here on TNN. Bruce Sarver and Scotty Cannon set to go in the next round of funny car competition as we welcome you back to the Moto1.net Nationals here at the Virginia Motorsports Park. Bruce Sarver advancing with only his second round win of the year earlier today. His victory over Whit Bazemore, and Scotty Cannon with the win over the Corvette of Scott Weiss. I keep telling you, Frank, you need a pair of glasses like that. Not to mention the haircut.
I was going to say they only fit if you have a mohawk is the problem. This is going to be good for either one of these drivers because they both had mixed results this season, and this will be a good opportunity for one of them to get into the semifinals.
Alan Johnson preps that car for Sarver. He's told me the car is possessed. Let's see. Yeah, didn't have a good run right there. It goes to Scotty Cannon with a 5.05 at 284 miles an hour. So Scotty Cannon is going to advance here in Virginia.
Both of the drivers left the starting line almost equal, about 1/100 of a second advantage on reaction time for Bruce Sarver. But Sarver's engine just kind of quit halfway through, which was fortunate for Scotty Cannon because about 200 feet before the finish line, you can see some stuff come out of the pipes on Scotty Cannon's car. It only ran 284 miles an hour, and that's a 300-mile-an-hour car, so he had some problems just down near the finish line. And at this point here, had Sarver's car not broken, he was on his way to a victory in the semifinals.
But Scotty Cannon, who didn't qualify to begin the year at Pomona, but then comes back and beats John Force at Gainesville. You're right, it's been that kind of an up-and-down year for him. There you see Jim Epler getting set to go racing here in Richmond, Virginia. As a matter of fact, we talked with Epler earlier in the week about having a good year, but you have to teach yourself how to win again.
We won in the first couple of years that I raced, and since then I knew how to win, but I didn't really feel like I was in a position every race to win. You know, there was other things that were more important. I mean, nothing's more important than winning, but we put yourself in an opportunity to win, and you got to take advantage of it. But this year, I mean, there's really no excuses. We have the best team, we got the crew, we got the cars, we got the sponsor, and it's just been fun.
Jim Epler winning at Las Vegas, his first win since the 1993 finals in Pomona. He's now 5th in points. As we check in with Steve Evans at the far end.
Scotty Cannon, a good day for you, a nice 5.0, steady performance.
Yeah, we want to hop it up a whole bunch, but at the same time, we don't want to calm it down because we know, you know, the Johnson bunch over there, they're pretty bad, and they got to get that old hot rod settled where to run. And he was ahead of me a good bit. I don't know. He was a little bit lazy coming in on me. I staged first, you know, out of courtesy, but next time he'll have to go in because I'm going to do him the same way. But that's okay.
Paybacks are, you know what.
A little bit of an edge to Scotty Cannon there. And there you see Epler, and on the far side, Ron Capps, the next pair set to go. This should be a good matchup right here because Capps has had some good runs. There's Rick Stewart. Rick Stewart, the chief starter. You see him right there between the lanes, signaling both drivers to shut their machines down.
Oh, this is going to be a problem.
Word we are getting in our ears is that there is a computer problem with the timing and scoring, and they're going to have to solve all of that. What does this mean for these teams shutting the cars down and having to recrank them?
Well, that really upsets the drivers, but they're going to have to do something with these cars now because they burned a lot of nitro out of them. The engines have gotten too hot. They're going to have to redo the tire pressures. They have to do some work. They can't just start them up and run them again.
Well, we're going to wait and see exactly what shakes down here. We'll come back with the Capps-Epler matchup and a whole lot more. TNN is in Richmond, Virginia. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. The Moto1.net NHRA Nationals. A very rare computer problem amongst the scoring situation there. Epler and Capps have gone back to the pits. They'll be running a bit later on. There you see Jerry Tolliver, and yes, if you're astute, you notice that is a Firebird as opposed to the standard Camaro, because Pontiac's Firebird, they say, is the car of choice here because of the downforce.
And downforce is very important to all of the drag race cars, but especially the funny cars because they have that short wheelbase, and the body shape makes a great deal of difference in how much air pushes down on those rear tires and gives them the traction because they have plenty of horsepower to go fast. They need traction.
There's Frank Pedregon for Checker, Shucks, and Cragen. Remember at IRP last year at the U.S. Nationals, he said he'd be joining Del Worsham with that second team here in the year 2000, and he has advanced while Del Worsham's weekend is already done. Tough assignment, though, for Pedregon against the #1 man in points, Jerry Tolliver. Just too much of that WWF oomph. 494 at 295 miles an hour. Tolliver advances in the so what else is new department. It's been that way all season long.
This is a great shot up here from the Bud Blimp because Tolliver takes this race right from the start. He leaves the starting line first by about 0.05 of a second and absolutely outpowers his competition. This is a huge margin of victory. A little bit of trouble down at the end of the track.
But if you're going to have trouble, that's where you want to have it once those chutes have deployed.
That's an exciting view at 300 miles an hour.
Gotta be breath. I can't imagine. I really can't imagine. And those guys really are driving these cars. They're not along for the ride. I mean, you got to aim and steer those babies.
Yeah, they're a handful, those things. But that's part of the excitement of NHRA drag racing.
John Force and Al Hoffman set to go. Austin Coyle front and center. John Force, with all you've done, what are the challenges? What's the carrot you're chasing here in 2000?
I look at individuals. I need something to motivate me, and I'm best when I get slapped. The worst thing that can happen to me is a guy ahead of me gets beat or red lights, and then Coyle said, "What, did you forget how to drive?" No, your adrenaline goes away because you say, okay, he's out of the points. He didn't hurt me, you know, and so now I have to find a whole new carrot, so to speak. That's your terminology. I have to find a whole new thing. The problem is you got to be a real rabbit in this funny car field because it's a big old carrot patch. There's a whole bunch of carrots out there to motivate you, whether it's a WWF or it's Bazemore or it's whatever. You got to go after them. And so I'm going to be eating the heck out of carrots this year.
As only he can put it, John Force, the 9-time funny car champion with 82 career victories. Austin Coyle lights the candle on that Castrol GTX machine, while Al Hoffman is in the other lane. There's veteran Jim Dunn and the whole crew. In their 50th anniversary year, Al Hoffman with 15 career funny car wins, but I think whoever gets out of this round is going to have to still get by Tolliver. Yes, you are, Steve. Go right ahead with the man.
You heard me. This is Jerry Tolliver. He red-lighted at Houston in the final round. You're being very careful on the starting line today.
I'm being very careful on the starting line, but why'd you have to say that? I'm not red-lining this weekend. I'm going to win this weekend, and you can take that to the bank.
With a 494, that might happen.
Already having won at Pomona and Gainesville here in the year 2000.
like that outside line, Bernie. I don't know that the burnout didn't make that area even. It's a little greasier.
Listening in on the John Force radio. Bernie being Bernie Federley. And you talk about the brains of both lanes right there. From Dunn to Coyle to Federley, not to mention Force and Al Hoffman. I mean, there's some major league experience out there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of the crew chiefs in the NHRA sport that are very young. You know, if you're in your late 30s or early 40s, you're considered a very young crew chief. A lot of these guys are in their 50s and even 60s, and it takes that kind of experience 20, 30, 40 years at a racetrack in order to be able to figure out how to put these cars in the winner's circle. It's very tricky.
Now, the Hoffman family car, if you're curious, the one that Helen runs, his wife, for Kristen Powell, they were here but failed to qualify this weekend. But Al's there in the Moon Eyes machine against John Force. This will be a good one. Awfully strong, John Force.
Nice work.
Indeed, it was nice work at a 491, 301 miles an hour. John Force.
They were dead even off the starting line, a 5:18 to a 5:16 reaction time. Hoffman was up for the battle against John Force. See a little bit of problem with Hoffman's car bouncing in the middle of the race course. Austin Coyle and John Force had some problems in the first round of competition, but they usually don't have trouble round after round after round, and Austin Coyle has got that piece fixed right now. And we heard Tolliver talk about take it to the bank. I don't know what John Force is going to think about that.
And basically right down Broadway, too. Didn't have to mess with that steering wheel much. Hazed the tires a bit near the finish, but he advances. So Force has lane choice over Scotty Cannon in their matchup. Of course, Tolliver advances. He'll face either Epler or Capps once they come out in a bit and run their second round match. All of that yet to come on TNN. Welcome back, everybody. The MotoNet1.net NHRA Nationals from Virginia Motorsports Park. Eli Gold, Frank Hawley, Steve Evans, Jim Epler, and Ron Capps now set to go after a delay because of that timing system malfunction. Obviously, they have to refuel, Frank, but what else?
Well, there's a number of things. The clutches get hot, the motors get hot. They might have changed the oil. They have to redo the tire temperature, get the clutches cooled back down, and, of course, put some more nitro back in the tank because they carry just enough fuel to get them through a burnout to the finish line. If they ran out of fuel, they could have some real problems.
Steve Evans, how often have you seen something like this happen where a pair comes back later?
It's extremely rare, Eli. Not for years, but neither driver is at a disadvantage. NHRA gave them all the time they needed, and they hurried as fast as they could for the sake of the fans in the stands.
Well, it was worth the wait for Ron Capps at a 493, 297 miles an hour.
Great job. You know, this team has been working so hard. The Don Perdome-owned race team had problems last year, and it's so good to see them back on track. A great start, almost dead even off the starting line. And at the mid-track point, it was obvious that Ron Capps was on his way to a victory. A good run for this team, a 493 at close to 300 miles an hour.
And, Steve, he has lane choice over Tolliver.
And there's a smile under that helmet. The biggest round win this year for Ron Capps in the Snakes Camaro. I guarantee you that. And lane choice is going to be really good news as well. Apparently that left lane has really come around thanks to more racing, a little more rubber. What a race. What a win.
I don't know what it ran, but I think I heard him leave after I did. I think I left before him. I'm not sure. Sometimes you get driving these things, you start remembering stuff. But his Camaro got out there, and I tell you, it hasn't done it all weekend here. But Ace said, don't worry, left lane's just fine. And he's the best, man. That's all I got to say.
He's not bad either.
Not bad at all. So Ron Capps posting a most impressive victory there as he will advance. High fives all around as we return to the Moto1.net Nationals in a moment. Welcome back, the Moto1.net Nationals. We've got a good one coming right into your living room. That is Larry Dixon. Far side, you see Doug Herbert. And if you were with us a couple of weekends ago from Houston, Texas, well, you remember these guys. This is the rematch of the semifinal in Houston a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, once Larry Dixon and the team get that car working properly, they seem to be able to maintain well. And they've had some good races recently, and Larry's always enjoyed racing at this track.
This will be the 4th meeting of the season between Dixon and Herbert, and that guy Dixon has beaten that man Herbert 3 straight times. And you know the underlying story. Dixon's crew chief Dick LaHaye was the tuner for Herbert last year. Let's see who advances to the finals. Larry Dixon against Doug Herbert.
Bill Walter works for Dixon and pulls him carefully up to the starting line so he gets ready, gets staged properly.
It's a pedal fest, and Dixon the better of the two with a 575 at 254 miles an hour. They don't give you style points in this business. You just got to get there first.
That is so difficult on the drivers. They take off from the start line. Herbert deep staged and left the starting line. They almost smoked the tires at the same time. It's like driving a 5,000 horsepower car on ice. Every time you get off the accelerator, you get back on it, it smokes the tires again. Dixon happened to do the better job on this run, often on the throttle 3 or 4 or 5 times down the racetrack. You can see it weaving around sideways going across the finish line. That was an exciting round of competition.
And never did the finish line look so good in that instance for Larry Dixon, who will advance to the finals here of the Moto1.net Nationals in front of that great crowd against the winner of the Kenny Bernstein-Gary Scelzi semifinal. That'll be upcoming here in just a second. You know, we were talking earlier, as you see Alan Johnson getting set to light the candle for Scelzi. We were talking earlier about the different makes and models of these cars. The Murph McKinney car, the Hadman machine. Got to take it a step further. These cars are very flexible. So when Steve was talking earlier about this car, that car, it wasn't certainly in a negative tone, but these are flexible, pliable machines.
Yeah, the chassis actually, there's no suspension, the front or the rear. It's all solid, and the chassis actually becomes the suspension as the car leaves the starting line and bends and twists. And it's really bending against the front wing force and the rear wing force, so it bows up in the middle. And I understand the new Hadman cars, although they operate very good and the crew chiefs like the way they work going down the track, as they get near the finish line, they're getting a little spooky for some of the drivers. So everything's a compromise, Eli.
Gary Scelzi's car being fired up by Alan Johnson. Scelzi, of course, a 2-time NHRA Top Fuel Winston champion. He told us he wants to get that #1 back after this year.
Not having it hurts. You know, everybody says #2 was respectable. I don't want to be respectable. I want to be obscene. I want to have rhinestones. I want to be the glit and glitter guy that's known when you pull the starting line next to me that this guy's going to rip your head off. And I think the #1 has an intimidation factor, and I think without it, I don't drive any less aggressive because I want it back, but I think it does make a statement.
Meanwhile, Larry Dixon, the driver of the Miller Lite Dragster, Steve, looking for his 2nd consecutive victory if he can pull it off today.
I think Larry has been watching the World of Outlaws on TNN. You were sideways dirt tracking it.
Man, I needed a Brody knob for that pass. I mean, it was all over the place. And, you know, I mean, the hard part is when you don't see the other guy, you don't know what to do, and you don't want to drive over your head, but you're still trying to get that win line. And we did with the Miller car, and that's all I care about at this point.
One talented right foot.
Indeed so. That's not as easy to do as you were explaining before, Frank. Does that potentially damage the car, though? Will they have to do anything extra to prepare for the finals?
Well, they might have to take the whole engine out. Those nitro engines don't like it when you get off and on the throttle like that. But at that point in the run, like Larry said, you don't care about the engine. You just want to get to the finish line first.
Kenny Bernstein beat Gary Scelzi in Las Vegas. Gary Scelzi beat Kenny Bernstein at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix. So they're 1-1 this year in their elimination rounds.
Scelzi said he likes to pull up there and feel like he's going to rip the other guy's head off. Well, he's got a tough battle here because Kenny Bernstein's been to the starting line and beaten the best.
They just made the call earlier today after some clutch problems. Just got there. Selzy's going home. And Bernstein's going to the finals with a 468 at 299 miles an hour. Selzy right off the get-go lost the traction, and it was all done for him.
Eli, when you make these cars run in the 460s like this, they're right on the edge of control all the time. They've got so much horsepower, so much clutch. They're trying to accelerate that car so hard that Selzy's car loses traction instantly as soon as he takes off. And, of course, Bernstein wants to get lane choice, and he's got it for the final now. Has some engine problems at the end. But what happens is when you look back, that's the view that Gary Selzy had from looking at Bernstein. It was all over.
That is breathtaking right there. So let's check out the pairings for you. It's going to be a good one. Who do you like when you take a look at that matchup right there? They're both awfully hot.
Well, I think that Bernstein's going to be in pretty good shape with lane choice.
So Bernstein and Dixon. There's the king of speed. Lots more coming up in just a moment. A great overhead view of the Virginia Motorsports Park outside of Richmond, Virginia. The Moto1.net Nationals and all of today's aerial coverage is being provided by the Anheuser-Busch Bud 1 Airship. Budweiser, the official beer of the NHRA. Hey, race fans, this Bud's for you. And I'm sure for that man as well. That is Jerry Tolliver, #1 in funny car points by 56 markers. He'll be opposing one of the hottest guys on the circuit, certainly this weekend. That is Ron Capps, who is now 3rd in points, 93 behind. Moments ago, you saw the semifinal runs in Top Fuel. Kenny Bernstein advancing to the finals. Steve Evans has caught up with KB at the far end.
Kenny Bernstein, another final round. That's 2 out of 3. A beautiful 468 lane choice. You got all the aces.
Well, thanks. Right now, it looks pretty good, but, you know, this game's awful tough, and the final will be tough against Dixon by all means. I'm just proud of the Budweiser boys for doing a great job. Mac and Prolong, too.
Kenny Bernstein, the king of speed.
Thumbs up all the way around. All right, so now we've got an interesting combination here because you've got the Chevrolet there for Ron Capps. And Frank, remember we talked earlier how Tolliver left his Chevy for the weekend and went to what he feels is the better extra downforce car, the Firebird.
Well, he's going to need some downforce. Now, Jerry's leading the points this year. He's got a fast car. He's been doing great. Extremely confident today. He's not lacking there, but he has one seriously tough opponent in Ron Capps. I don't know what's going to happen with this round, but I think Ron's going to have a good one.
Let's see if Mr. Hawley is on the money with his guess. Capps got out first, and watch this. Oh, man. How about the win for Ron Capps? A 635 to the 644 of Tolliver, 218 miles an hour. Goodness, that was ugly, but Capps thought it was beautiful when it was all over.
Well, yeah, what happened there on the start line is, you know, Jerry had a tough time in the final round the other week, and you can see what happened here is Ron Capps had a normal reaction time, and Jerry was so concerned probably about having a problem there that he was late by a lot.
.712 was the reaction time number for Tolliver to .466 for Capps. Remember that .40 is perfect. So yeah, it was 0.3 off.
This might look exciting from the aerial shot, but I'll tell you, it's no fun inside the car. You can see how Jerry's fighting with the steering wheel, trying to keep the car off the wall at over 200 miles an hour, smoking the tires. It's exciting for the racers, but terrifying for the drivers.
And Steve, that guy was only 93 points back when the day began. He's closing in.
He sure is. Ron, take the folks at home for a ride.
Well, you know, Houston last race, I crossed the center line, and you always try to do, we made our air bottles now with a button on the steering wheel, and I was always afraid to grab the brake like Snake had told me because we had the fire bottles on the brake handle. Thing goes out there, leaves great, it starts shaking. It's like your house going through an earthquake. And then all you can do is get back on and off the throttle. You got this much throttle to work with and 7,000 horsepower at your right foot. And all you do is pedal, 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 and hope the thing doesn't blow up and get to the other end. And I got the best coach in the world, two of them, Ace and Snake.
I don't know about you, but I got goosebumps.
You got that right. That was a heck of a show. There is John Force. What does he think about Jerry Tolliver? Is there a little John Force in Jerry Tolliver? We asked him.
Jerry Tolliver has proved himself as a promoter. He found money when people claimed there wasn't any. That was just a strategy. We talked a lot about it. Two-car concept. He's a hustler. He's good in front of a camera. And he's learning how to drive a race car. Probably the best movie he made was Dale Armstrong, teaming up. And you see the advantage with a two-car team when, even if you lose, as in Vegas like they did, that his other teammate jumps up and wins. Beat our Tony in the Syntec car in the final.
So through all of that, the answer is yes, there is some John Force and Jerry Tolliver.
Yeah, and part of that is that confidence factor, but that can be easily broken. You have a few bad races, and you can kind of lose that. What's going to be important for these guys, like John Force knows, is he's gone through some slumps in this period, and one of the best measures of a true champion is not how you handle it when you're at the top, as you know. It's how you handle it when you're at the bottom, when you're struggling, when you can't get those wins, and you maintain that concentration, that energy, and that focus to bring yourself back to the top, and John Force has proven that time and again.
Now, this has not been a vintage year for John Force. He has only the one win at Phoenix. He is 110 points down in fourth place in the NHRA numbers. Scotty Cannon, meanwhile, still going through a bit of a learning curve, has no wins this year. He's ninth in points, down by 216.
What can happen on this round of competition, and you know that John Force, Cannon, Austin Coyle, all of them, watch those cars smoke the tires in front of them. It's later in the afternoon. The track might be heating up a little bit, and you know that they've got some concern. Is that going to happen to me when I pull up there? Do I have to leave the starting line and get ready if it smokes the tires and catch it and get off and on the throttle? Is that going to happen? Should I remove it from my mind and just concentrate on cutting the light and trust the car setup? It's a really difficult time for the drivers when they see those kinds of runs in front of them.
Now, Force has a 5-1 advantage in career meetings with Scotty Cannon. Cannon's lone win against the 9-time champ came during their last get-together in Las Vegas. Of course, Force, a 3-time winner of this event, crewed by that man, Austin Coyle. John did win here a year ago. The winner faces Capps in the finals. It wasn't pretty. Scotty Cannon was left at the line, and John left of even more so, about half track. 489, 301 miles an hour.
That's what you call a wire-to-wire victory. Just a fabulous job. We saw the cars smoke the tires in front of them. Austin Coyle's not afraid of any racetrack, especially not this one. He had the car set up perfectly. 489. Fabulous run for John, and kept it in the middle of the lane. Some of the drivers have been saying the cars have been pulling to the left on that left side, but John's car, if anything, went a little to the right. Looked great.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final comment.
Now John Force with lane choice against Capps, getting himself undone down at the far end. Steve?
Yeah, John Force just picked up 20 huge Winston points on the leader, Jerry Tolliver, and there's 20 more still on the table if he can get to Ron Capps in the final. John, you just stomped Cannon.
Well, he good old racer. I look over at that car, I get all screwed up looking at the teeth on the front of that old Oakley heap there, but they're real good racers, and we're just happy we can finally get back in the groove of winning a few rounds. And, man, I heard Tolliver was heading for the bank, but then I realized it was Sunday. You can't go to the bank on Sunday.
It never ends.
He must stay up thinking of stuff, doesn't he? Unbelievable. It's going to be a good one. Force and Capps with John Force holding lane choice. The Moto1.net Nationals nearing a conclusion.
This is John Force, 9-time World Funny Car Champion. This is the Fram air filter with new Triad fiber technology. John Force knows a thing or two about dirt. The Fram Triad air filter traps up to 48% more dirt. So, what happens when you put the two of them together? Presto changeo. The new Fram Triad air filter. Pay a little more now or pay a lot later.
Glad you're with us. The Moto1.net NHRA Nationals. Time to zero in on Pro Stock or the Jeg Coughlin division, the way things have gone this year.
Well, in the last few years, it's been the Warren Johnson division, so it's nice to see the Coughlin up there.
And look at Kurt Johnson. He's all the way down in 10th spot. Of course, next week in Atlanta, things might change for the Johnson family, being that there's home track there. Pro Stock qualifying, in case you didn't get a chance to keep up with it earlier. Here's how the top 16 qualified, and things were all said and done for Warren and Kurt Johnson.
Incredibly fast field. Mark Powick, number 8, with an 88.
And did you notice that? You had a couple of Johnsons, a couple of Yateses, a couple of Coughlins. Very much a family affair here in NHRA Winston Drag Racing. Now, Richie Stevens and Jim Yates set to go here. There's Jim. This is his home track. He's from down the road a piece here in the state of Virginia. And, of course, Richie the Kid Stevens.
Richie's been lightning quick on the starting line, so I'm anxious to see if he can pull it off against Jim Yates.
Good drag race. Give the win to Jim Yates. He had not the edge in reaction time. Stevens did by 1,000th, but at a 690, 199 miles an hour, Jim Yates is moving on.
Yeah, it was dead even on the starting line, a 488 to a 499. Those 420 reaction times are hard to pull off with consistency. Jim Yates did a good job. He had a nice, consistent light and used that horsepower and his experience to get the car down the racetrack and to the finish line first.
Jim Yates from Alexandria, Virginia. His best finish here was a runner-up in 1995. He has a chance to take a win again. And there is Jeg Coughlin. Now, if you're not familiar with the Pro Stocks this year, all Jeg has done is win at Pomona. He's won at Phoenix. He's won at Las Vegas. He's won at Houston. You kind of get the idea. He is number 1 by 133 points in the standings. They've got a foot cam. There you see the old.
Right. Good.
They're backing him up into position.
3 feet.
Now forward he goes to get set to stage. He's facing Kurt Johnson, who is surprisingly 8th in points, down by 296 to Jeg.
I wonder if Warren went over and helped Kurt between rounds, knowing that he had an opportunity to stop Jeg.
Could well be. And of course, Kurt told me yesterday, he said, you know, the car is finally going straight. They had trouble getting that Pro Stocker to go straight. He said, once we found our problem, he said, we're going to be tough the rest of the way. But it didn't go straight.
Hi, buddy. 688.
At 100.
Excellent job, guys. You won the favorite of the wall again, but trucking right down through there. KJ can like that one.
688 at 199 miles an hour. And watch Kurt Johnson's car kick out a bit. See, right there.
You can see him making the shifts down the racetrack, but he didn't have any competition there by the half track. What they were concerned about was getting that low ET for that lane choice in the final.
So it's going to be a good one coming up. You've got the man who's been on a bit of a juggernaut, or a juggernaut, I guess, against the local favorite, Jim Yates. That's coming up a bit later on our coverage of the Moto1.net Nationals. TNN Sports with you, covering the NHRA. Welcome back, everybody, as we continue from Richmond, Virginia. Let's remind you about wrenchhead.com, the online automotive superstore. Millions of replacement parts, performance parts, and accessories, and free shipping. Wrenchhead.com. Parts online all the time. Time now for the finals in Pro Stock Truck. as we have all the action for you from the Moto1.net Nationals. Here's how the points stack up going through 4 of the 14 races. Randy Daniels, he of course advancing today. He is in the finals, and for the first time will be facing Mike Coughlin as you see the top 10 in Pro Stock Trucks. Now, who was here this weekend? Well, all the normal list of suspects. The top 16 who made the competition look like this. See the brothers Coughlin in there?
Our 2 final round opponents, you can see, actually qualified quite close together, Eli. And I was talking to Jeg, who's the dad of all of these Coughlin boys today. Right. And what Jeg was telling me is that he is just so pleased with how his boys have done at the races, both with the truck teams and the car teams this year. He's having a good time.
Taking a look at the ladders for you so you'll know exactly how everybody has fared today. There's the one side yielding Mike Coughlin, who was DNQ'd at the last 3 events, did not qualify. And there's Randy Daniels making his 4th consecutive final round appearance of the year after also failing to qualify at the season opening Winter Nationals in Pomona. Let's see who'll grab the first Wally of the day. Give it to Randy Daniels with a 7:49 at 179 miles an hour. So with his win at Gainesville and Houston, now add Richmond, Virginia to the list.
This is about as close a drag race as you can have, a .443 to a .440, just 0.003 of a second difference on the starting line reaction times. As they head down the track, they are locked in battle side by side. This is one of those races when you look at the finish line, the naked eye cannot tell who won this drag race. But it was Randy Daniels. By how much? By just 0.003 of a second. Now, these are the nerve-wracking ones for the drivers because as they're heading down the track, they're pushing on that gas pedal so hard, they're pushing it right through the floor because they know their opponent's right beside them, and that vehicle will just not go fast enough. But it went fast enough for Mr. Daniels on this one.
The graduate of Competition Eliminator picking up the win. Congratulations to Randy Daniels. Now it's time for Pro Stock, and there is Mr. Pro Stock this year, Jeg Coughlin. That's right, we just talked about Mike seconds ago. This is Jeg, and we've been talking about him all year, winning Pomona, Phoenix, Las Vegas, won last time out here on TNN in Houston. He's obviously been the man to beat, and if he wins and knocks off that guy, Jim Yates, then Jeg will become the first driver to win 5 of the first 6 events in a season since 1980. Lee Shepard did that in that season, winning 6 of the first 7.
Down here on the foot cam, we've got 3 pedals, just like a standard transmission car. Clutch on the left, a brake in the middle, and a gas on the right. But as he leaves the start line, he's going to lift off that clutch pedal, and he'll never touch it again. These cars are shifted gears at wide open throttle without using the clutch.
Remember, though, this is Jim Yates' home track. Let's see who wins it. Jag again, a 686 at 199 miles an hour. Jag Coughlin just continuing to tear up the series. He came in leading by 133 points, and he continues to pull away here this weekend.
Eli, I never like making predictions because I don't want to jinx anybody, but with the year that the Coughlins have had so far, can you say Winston Championship already? Yeah. These guys look almost unstoppable, and that's that Dick Maskin horsepower along with some pretty good driving by Jeggy that's putting them into the winner's circle all the time. What a tough team.
Tell you, planning, preparation, maintenance, all of those are keys.
You can see Yates got a little bit out of the groove over to the center, and that could have cost him 1/100th of a second or 2, but I don't know if it was 4/100ths of a second, and that's what he lost in ET compared to Coughlin.
686 at 199 miles an hour. So Jag Coughlin continues on towards Atlanta, Georgia next week here on TNN Sports, winning yet again, and he'll try and pick up yet another victory. Steve Evans, this is getting to be a standard operating procedure.
Eli's favorite new word is the juggernaut, and I have to say that's pretty appropriate as he accepts the most prize trophy in all of drag racing.
I tell you what, this season's just gotten off to a phenomenal start, obviously, for Team Jags, and Dick Maskin and everyone's done a heck of a job, beating the split fire Pete Carr in the final. Jim Yates, doesn't get any better than that. So, I'm just happy for everyone in Columbus, Ohio, and with Jags, because this one's for them.
Jackie Beck, Miss Winston here, and also from Moto1.net, we've got Tony Zimmerman and Henry Price. And if you like to play video games on the net, punch up that site. Eli?
Well, everybody likes getting on the internet and seeing how good we can do. Problem is, I never win. All these young guys come along and knock you off. But Jag's a winner, but we've got lots more coming up. Don't go away. We return in a moment. Getting set to go now as the finals are set to roll in Top Fuel, as we've got Kenny Bernstein and Larry Dixon coming up next. Hey, folks, remember, next Sunday on TNN, not only will we have NHRA action from Atlanta, but we'll take you to Montgomery, Alabama for a short track war ASA style. It's their first visit back to Montgomery in over a decade. Don't miss the Alabama 300 next Sunday at 1:30 Eastern and Pacific right here on TNN. Kenny Bernstein and Larry Dixon. Bernstein with an 11-7 advantage in head-to-head battles with Dixon over the years. The winner of this not only wins the Wally here in Richmond, but also will decide who's going to leave Richmond, Virginia in second and who'll be in third place in the points.
It makes a big difference. And is this a classic battle? Yeah. Miller against Bud. One of the younger drivers, Larry Dixon, against, a guy that's been around a little bit longer, Kenny Bernstein, but he does not suffer from reaction times. And a lot of people think when you get older, you lose that. Well, Kenny Bernstein is living proof that he's as quick as anybody off that starting line.
Steve, what do you think? Can Dixon grab his second straight win?
I talked to his crew chief, Dick LaHaye. He said they were way too aggressive in the semifinals. They have taken compression away from it with thicker head gaskets. They backed off on the blower a little bit and also on the ignition timing to calm it down. Yeah, I think he can.
Bernstein, of course, winning in Las Vegas earlier this year. And interestingly, this is Bernstein's 92nd final round appearance in his career, but the first time he's made it to the finals here at the Virginia Motorsports Park.
In reference to what Steve was talking about, backing the engine down, taking a little bit of power away so it doesn't smoke the tires and spin. You can't do too much of that because you give up some performance by doing that. So this is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in this final round.
The brewery battle. Pick your flavor. Bud against Miller Lite. Bernstein had him, but he started mixing up the cylinders, and Dixon comes on with the 467 win to the 469 for Bernstein. Larry Dixon wins at an impressive 314 miles an hour.
What an outstanding drag race. 460 reaction times for both of them. This is the kind of final round we love to see at the NHRA races. The drivers were almost at a dead heat leaving the starting line all the way through the middle of the track. In fact, they were only 1/100th of a second apart with Bernstein in front at the 8th mile.
So you see that flashing out of the headers, and that's usually the signal of something amiss.
Yeah, having some problems with the engine down there. It got a little bit rich, and that made the difference because I think that at half-track, Kenny Bernstein started to move away and was thinking it was going to be his race, but Larry Dixon was keeping that throttle down and was not giving up, and that was the difference. The margin of victory, he won by just 1/100th of a second.
Dixon's 19th career final round, and Steve, his 10th victory.
One heck of a race, Larry Dixon. Your crew chief said you'd run a 466. He missed a 67.
I don't care. That last round we won with smoking the tires and everything, I just look for that win line. I'm trying to get down the track as safe as I can. Having those two beer cars go up against each other, Bernstein, he's one of the toughest guys in the world to race. And we got the win light this time, and I'm very thankful for Miller and Chevy and Moto1.net and everybody else. I'm just thrilled to death. I'm very happy. Thanks.
Can the snake pull off a double? Can the snake pull off a double?
We'll find out, of course, because coming up a bit later on the show, John Force and Ron Capps, the Snakes man. So there you see Dixon now leaves here number 2 in points behind Tony Schumacher. Kenny Bernstein will leave in the 4th spot. Tell you, this is going to be a dandy of a season, but we have a repeat winner in Top Fuel. The streak ends, but Larry Dixon doesn't worry about streaks. He's just heading to victory lane.
Presenting 8-time funny car champion John Force to test the Fram Extra Guard filter with its new short grip top.
It's easy to hold on to. See, I still got it. They ain't kidding about that rough textured grip. Couldn't drop it if I wanted to.
Oh, baby! The new Fram Extra Guard with short grip.
It sure makes changing your oil filter a lot easier.
TNN Sports coverage of the Moto1.net Nationals from Richmond, Virginia has been brought to you by David Sunflower Seeds. Break out of your shell. By Fram, who asks, when was the last time you changed your air filter? And by New Finish, the once-a-year car polish rated #1 by Consumer Magazine's New Finish. The burnouts are underway for the final pair of the day. The Moto1.net Nationals Funny Car Finals for John Force. This is a regular happening. For Ron Capps, still something fairly new. His 16th final round appearance, the 129th final round appearance for John Force. That's almost unconscionable, Frank.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing if you look at what John and Austin Coyle and Bernie and the rest of the camp have accomplished over the last decade to dominate any sport at the level they have in drag racing over the last decade is something that probably may never be matched again.
Steve, John Force won here a year ago on Monday, as you might remember, after rain. Meanwhile, Capps would like to give Don Prudhomme the double dip after Dixon wins. What do you think?
Well, I talked to Don Prudhomme, and he says it's funny, when you get 2 cars in the finals, 3 things can happen. You can be 100% happy, 50% happy, or totally disappointed. Well, already Larry Dixon's got that 50%.
I believe he sidestepped my question.
Well, I think Snake's got to be happy with the performance of his car. There's Don Prudhomme right now. Looks all calm, real casual. He looked like that through his entire racing career, but you know there's a fire burning inside him, whether he was driving these cars like Ron Capps is, or he's standing back there watching.
Capps looking for his first win in 30 races, dating back to Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas, October of 1998.
If they lose traction, and this is a tire-smoking battle, Ron Capps is every bit as good at this as John Force.
And indeed, you're right. But Force does the job right there. 591 at 236 miles an hour. They both came perilously close to the center line. But again, John Force gets the win.
These are the kind of rounds that you wish you could have back again. They left the starting line almost together. Force was about 100th of a second later. I thought they were far enough down the track where they weren't going to smoke the tires, but you can see at this point, Ron Capps loses traction first. That puts him at a disadvantage because John Force loses traction a little bit later. His car's going much faster when it does lose traction. Therefore, it's a little easier for him to regain that traction. But look at this driving job John Force does. That's over a ton of race car with 7,000 horsepower, fighting that machine around, staying off the center line. These funny car drivers, I'll tell you, they have been earning their money today because driving these 7,000 horsepower cars on ice, sliding around, looking at the center line, beating that steering wheel, almost lost it there, back on the throttle, and then still to go over 230 miles per hour. That is got to be the most exciting driving race car on the planet Earth.
That's remarkable what we've just seen. Steve, he missed the center line literally by inches.
John, you were walking a tightrope out there, just inches away from disqualification.
The groove was crazy. You got to get after Capps when you go after him and McCullen. And, man, she trucked and then she rattled. I thought, God, I pedaled her. Why in the hell did I do that? And then she came around sideways, and I thought, oh, man, here goes, it's going over the wall. And I pedaled, and it just, I don't know, somehow it recovered, and I didn't see him. I got after her, and she smoked down through there.
She did indeed take that trophy. It's smoking as well. Eli, what a great day.
Unbelievable. Not only did John pedal on the track, he double clutched and pedaled during the interview, too. What a great story. Jerry Tolliver leaves with the point lead, but Force from 4th up to 2nd now.
Yeah, and we saw our 2nd and 3rd place drivers just race each other, so the best are getting to the top.
I'll tell you something, folks. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, join us again next Sunday, because Steve and Frank and myself, John Force, everybody will be together in Atlanta, Georgia. NHRA Winston Drag Racing coming up next weekend again from Atlanta right here on TNN. Big thank you for the folks at Budweiser and the Bud One Airship for all of their aerial coverage. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage from Virginia Motorsports Park. Man, time to breathe. What a day. We'll see you next week from Atlanta with more on TNN Sports with Frank Hawley and Steve Evans and the whole TNN crew. Eli Gold bidding you so long from Richmond, Virginia.